Did you see my outline?
Jana, we're talking about how does Pinterest pay me today?
Yeah. Did you
And
see
I
my
saw
outline?
your outline. I did.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
reviewed it while I was sauteing tomatoes for my bagel, and we are chatting about the history of kind of Pinterest's, you know, forte into paying creators and then out of it because it was very sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. When it happened, it was sudden when it started, it was sudden when it stopped. It was kind of funny. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think we basically want to answer the question and try to clear up like some confusion that people still have to this day about, whether or not Pinterest is paying creators directly or Pinterest has a different term for creators these days, right?
Yeah, they use some terms interchangeably, but the one that I've been hearing lately is content suppliers.
Content suppliers, right? It sounds a little
Although,
technical, but it's actually, I like it because it's very denotatively accurate and it's
yeah,
inclusive. It
yeah,
includes everyone. So if you say a content supplier, that means someone who's pinning their blog posts. It means someone who's, creating videos on the platform. It means anyone who's literally, showing up and supplying content, regardless of how they monetize or don't monetize it. So I like that term.
yeah.
But yeah, I think, I still to this day have so many questions coming in, even like to my blog and the comments and on social media about like, does Pinterest pay creators? Like I heard that Pinterest pays creators. So we wanted to kind of like
Mhm.
start at the beginning and tell the story, right? Of like how Pinterest monetization and how people, entrepreneurs of all different kinds, have made money on Pinterest kind of over the years with like a focus on answering this question that people are always asking us. So that was kind of like my vision for this the what I when I kind of pitched Heather on this idea. So I'm like, let's answer this damn question that people ask all the time.
I love doing that. I actually did that this week on the channel for long form. I finally answered the question of when you should curate versus when you should create. So if you haven't seen
Mm,
that video, you can definitely go and check it out. It's just on the channel. So let's actually just start with the origination of Pinterest. So Pinterest, a lot of Pinterest experts actually get this wrong, and it's
it
kind of
get
insulting. Like
it
if you're a
gets your goat.
Pinterest
It gets your
expert,
goat. Yeah.
please get it correct, Susie. Okay. It's 2010.
Yep.
They
When
started
Pinterest
in
started.
2010.
Hmm.
I got my invite in August of
Hmm.
2010 because that was when my daughter was born. And yeah, that's when it started. And it really started to take off for bloggers circa 2011. That's a lot of bloggers started pinning their things to the platform because it was just more like a pin board back then. There really wasn't a search algorithm or anything, right, Jenna?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I remember like in the very beginning, and I've used this analogy before, but like I used to have these like notebooks, these like loose leaf notebooks with these like plastic sleeves, and I'd rip things out of magazines and put them in the notebook. And I had like one for recipes and I had one for like home decor and stuff. And when Pinterest came around, Pinterest kind of filled that need. They were like, I think we can do this online. We can like keep
Mhm.
track of different things that you want to keep track of on the internet and having you pin them to a board, which is why it was called Pinterest, because it was like you're pinning your interests, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was like just so basic. And as they added features and added, different pieces of it, like you said, the bloggers discovered, and they were really the first community, the bloggers. When we say the bloggers, we mean people who monetize their blog based on traffic. So they're in these ad networks and they have ads on their blog. Sometimes they monetize with affiliate links, but like they're getting, hundreds of thousands of views to their blog, and that's how they monetize. That's
Yep.
not the kind of clients that I work with, right? But those are the first ones that found Pinterest and they discovered that, hey, if I pin my stuff, like naturally people are seeing it and going to my blog and whoa, look at my back end of my blog. I'm getting like hundreds and thousands of, of website visits from this random little like app, or not even an app, it was a website, right?
Website. You
That
have to get
they that
on
these
desktop to even access. Like it
right, that
wasn't
these
even optimized for mobile when they first
right.
started.
Right. And it was created by two dudes. It was like two guys,
Yeah.
right, who like created it. So yeah, and so it's interesting. That was kind of like the origins of it. And the bloggers learned a lot and they taught us, all of us, all different kinds of creators and content suppliers how to monetize on the platform. So we owe them a lot because they were like the pioneers on Pinterest of like, okay,
You
how can we
really
make
were.
money? How can we make money? Yeah. Yeah, you were.
Well, and how can we make money with our blogs? I mean, some of
Yeah.
the original bloggers like Ruth Suckup and the lady that has the work at home mom. the work at home wife, and then the lady that has the line of like cookware and stuff in Walmart. It's very popular. I can't think of her name right now, but she has a really like popular blog and like a Food Network channel show
Okay.
now. And I feel like she has to attribute a lot of her early on success with Pinterest because that's really when she first started
Yeah. Yeah, it's so
recipe
interesting.
blogging.
When do you
Yeah.
think you pinned your first blog post for was it your travel blog that you were originally pinning for or your mom
No,
blog?
it's my mom blog in
Okay.
2016,
Okay. So
August
funny.
2016.
Okay, so it took you okay, so it was a longer period of time between then. But yeah, I mean like around, I mean certainly even in 2010 when it started, but certainly 2011, 2012, 2013 bloggers were adding their blogs and they were doing it a lot and they saw great results from it so they did it more and they're like, "Wow." And it seemed for a long time I know like the more you pin, the more traffic you got and it was just kind of
Mhm.
like the heyday really in a lot of ways, right? So then we're kind of coming up on like the next kind of phase of Pinterest, I guess, which, it's kind of a long period, but like around 2014, 15, 16, all the way up and through like kind of like into 19, basically. That's the phase during which like other types of business owners, in addition to bloggers, were also discovering like, okay, well, I'm
Yeah.
not a blogger, but I could probably get traffic to my site and monetize it in different ways. So that's when like the digital product sellers, the physical product sellers, and of course the physical product sellers have a whole different history, which maybe you can contribute a little bit to here too, Heather. Because over the years, Pinterest has had different like approaches and tools for e-commerce, but even the service businesses during that period started discovering, okay, this isn't just for bloggers. I can actually
Yeah.
pin my stuff and get eyes on it, right? Um, and most of during that time though, that's still like Pinterest, like what I used to call Pinterest 1.0, where um, it was still mostly about getting traffic from Pinterest, right? Even like if you were trying to sell products, if you were getting traffic to your blog and monetizing from there, if you were, trying to sell services, it was still really about how can I use Pinterest to drive traffic to my website and then do something on my website to monetize that. Um, and I have a blog post, and I think you have a piece of content about this too, Heather, but mine's called 8 Ways Entrepreneurs Make Money on Pinterest.
Hmm.
And we'll link that in the Pinterest in the YouTube video description. I always trip over that. And do you have a resource like that too to link? I think you have a
Yeah.
similar, yeah. Is it a YouTube episode or a blog post or both?
I'll have to go look. I'm not sure.
Okay. But we'll put those in the
In the
I can never
description.
do it in the
You
description of
can
this
call it
video.
show notes.
All right, you know what? Maybe I just will. We'll put those in the show notes description of this video so people
Mhm.
can get into it more. But there were like, at that time, there were like 8 ways that I put in that blog post that people could be making money using Pinterest. But most of them had to do with, again, getting traffic and then monetizing. And there were a couple where we started seeing, okay, like, it's not just selling your own products and services. There are other ways to
Yeah.
monetize Pinterest, right? So another way to kind of think about this, and this is something that I was thinking about as I was preparing for this live, is that there's sort of 3 ways, and there have been 3 ways historically over the years, and
Mhm.
there still are 3 ways. And we'll get to the whole like, does Pinterest pay creators shortly, but that people make money on Pinterest, or 3 like subcategories, and then there's like methods underneath either of those categories. Category 1 is where Pinterest actually pays you directly as the creator, and we'll talk about that. Category 2 is brands pay you. So you're like an influencer, a content creator, and brands pay you to do like user generated, like content and things like that for their brands. And then the third is like you sell your own products or services and you
Yeah.
use Pinterest to sell more of your own products and services. So it's kind of like thinking about those kind of like 3 ways too. So we'll talk to, like I said, more about the question about whether Pinterest is paying creators, but that's kind of like my like overall like history assessment up until the point of like 2021 where things changed. Anything
Yeah.
you wanted to add to all that? Yeah.
I don't even remember. Was it 2021 going into 2022?
Yeah. I actually looked it up before this. So
Wow. That seems like so long
yeah,
ago.
so long ago.
Yeah, it seems like so long ago. But they did end it in November 30th of 2022, and they would have
Exactly.
started it in
It was
21.
Exactly. It was started in November of 21 and ended in November of 22. And it that we're referring to right now is the actual answer to the question of this video, which is,
Mhm.
is Pinterest paying creators directly? So we're gonna talk about that as well. I'm trying to, I feel like there's something else that, was there something we were gonna add about like the point up till 2021 when the world changed and Pinterest started doing something that we never imagined they would, but they did.
Well, I think it really all comes down to the platform was still at that point in time trying to court creators. And you have to remember, and everyone else has to remember, 2020 is very unique, and we probably won't have a situation like that again. It'll be different if it happens again. But 2020 was so unique in that everyone was at home, everyone was online. So, of course, we saw huge growth in the platform. And from that point until just recently, they still did not surpass the amount of users they put on the platform in 2020. So, they were courting creators. And the reason why they introduced what in 2021 you're talking about is the creator reward program is because they were courting creators. And other platforms had creator reward programs where they were paying creators to create content. So they wanted to kind of throw their hat in the ring and see what happened
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And kind of out of that came the introduction of brand tagging tools and tools where brands can actually see analytics on your content. They can promote your pins in their own ads managers and things like that. So there have been iterations since 2021, but ultimately what people are talking about when they ask this question or what they're referring to is that creator reward program.
Right. Yep. So it was actually, according to what I saw, October, but either October or November of 2021,
Mhm.
on, I think it was like a creator call, they announced this creator rewards program. And like Heather said, it was a way to court and also reward influencer type content creators who, were probably spending most of their time creating content on like TikTok and Instagram, and some other content too. Like we did have some bloggers who got into creator rewards. Creator
Mhm.
rewards was a program where Pinterest paid creators directly, and
Yep.
you not everybody was eligible. There were certain eligibility requirements. It went from, I think originally it was like 1,000 followers, but then they reduced it to 250 followers. And there were some other like quality-based metrics as well. I can't remember what they are now, although I created a little course back then on what they were and how to qualify and everything.
I might have it.
Um, yeah, I think it was like you had to have a certain number of saves, I think it was, because saves are a really important metric for like quality and engagement. And you could go into your phone app and apply by going through a process in your phone app in the Creator Hub. And, if anyone's watching this and you jump in there now and look, you're not going to see this because, again, this program only existed for 1 year in the way that we're
Yeah.
discussing it now. You'd go in and you'd apply, and then if you got approved, you could start creating based on these specs that they would send out. So it was like once a week, and I I remember there was like the day we were all waiting for it to drop. They would drop these like assignments essentially and say like, here are the themes for the week. I think it was a week, maybe it was the month. I think it was the month.
It was the month.
Yeah. And, we want you to create pins around these. And at first it was idea pins,
Mhm.
primarily or mostly. Idea pins also are no longer really on the platform, sort of like they're not called idea pins anymore.
Yeah, they're just pins.
Um, yep. And you would basically create the pin and you had to follow certain specifications. And then during a certain window in the month, you'd get a notification that it's time to submit them. You'd submit them. Actually, I think you could submit them any month. And
Mhm.
sometimes they got declined and sometimes they got approved. A lot of times they got approved. But sometimes they did get declined. And that was like, everybody was all freaking out about that in the forums as well. Like, why am I creating? And then they're getting declined and things. So it was like a big deal. But they paid pretty decent money, it was more than other platforms were paying for content. And while it lasted, for the people who qualified and who followed the directions well and, did all the things, it was awesome. I think I made about $11,000 from Pinterest directly in that year. So if you look at my tax forms, you'll see Pinterest actually, not wrote me checks literally, but like, they sent 1099s at the end of the year. And it was
They
like,
did.
it was $11,000 for me. And I know creators, at least one creator that I know who was a real like full-time content creator made about $30,000 during
That's incredible.
during that year. Yeah. So it was great while it lasted. It was a very imperfect program. The whole time it was a beta and they, were honest about that. And
Mhm.
some people got mad because it was imperfect, but the whole point was that it was a beta. They were testing it out to
There were
see if it
people
worked.
there were
Yep.
people that were mad because the program existed, and then there were people that were mad that they weren't getting traffic to their websites because Pinterest was prioritizing idea pins.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
And then there were people that were mad because they weren't making enough money, and there are always people that are mad. We're never not going to have upset people.
Ain't that the truth?
There were people that couldn't get into the program because they were only spamming Pinterest with TikTok videos as idea pins, and they weren't actually creating original content, which was one of the guidelines. It has to be original content. This is
Yep.
the first time it's been shared on any platform. They
Right.
did check.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a very imperfect platform or program. And at the end of the day, I'm actually kind of glad they ended it because during that time, as a Pinterest manager, I was actually creating and submitting content for clients to this
Mm.
program. I
Yeah.
had 3 different clients I was submitting content for, and I was making them money through this
Hmm.
program, but it was also costing me a lot more time and really eating into my ROI for the invoice they were paying me to
Mm.
do this for them. And it just was super stressful
Hmm. I
from a
remember.
Pinterest manager perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. And I was going to say something about how when they ended it. I will say, like, okay, so when you look back on it in hindsight, I actually, even though there were a lot of problems that it created for Pinterest because it brought a lot of spam onto the platform, because a lot of people from all around the world, and in this country too, but all from around the world, where this sort of little like cottage industry also rose up, where people were basically getting other people to pay them to show them how to make money on Pinterest. And then they were teaching them some pretty questionable tactics and
Yeah.
strategies, some that were questionable and kind of worked, but were sort of like cheating, and other ways that just didn't work, just flat out were like they were selling them, like, I'll teach you how, and then they'd show them how to do things, but that's not how you do it, kind of thing. Like, that won't work, that won't make you money. So
Hmm.
all of that rose up around it as well. And we saw a lot of that when you and I were Pinterest pioneers in the Pioneer Forum. But, and all of us did as pioneers. But um, overall, like, it brought some spam onto the platform and brought to the attention of people this platform that maybe they wouldn't have tried to go and spam and be a part of otherwise. But I also think it did bring to uh, the attention of a lot of like really good quality creators that Pinterest was a place where you could create content. And
For sure.
while they were doing the creator rewards program, they were also adding features, like you mentioned a minute ago, that were really there to support a different monetization method, which was brand deals off, with Pinterest. So
Mhm.
that's where, like, let's say I'm an influencer, and instead of just pitching, the teeth whitening company that I'm an influencer for on Instagram and TikTok content, I say, hey, I also can do Pinterest content for you. And here's the benefit of doing that. And it's additional, it's an additional $1,200 for the year, whatever. I don't know what influencers charge, but and so I actually do think that there was and still is some leftover, like, people who like discovered the platform during that era when they
Yeah.
were putting all that support in place for creators and drawing them in with programs and features and money. So, I mean, there was some good that came out of it as well. And
Yeah.
it was so fun.
I think when the
So
dust
fun.
settled and people were over the disappointment of the program ending,
Hmm.
um, I think we settled back into just a rhythm of creating content and getting back to the roots of what Pinterest is about. It's about inspiration. It's about finding things that you can connect with offline. Their mission, vision, and values are not for people to be trapped on their platform 24/7 like TikTok and Instagram. They don't need you to be on their platform all the time in order to get paid and make money, which is
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yep.
They do prioritize a positive, safe place. They prioritize healthy mental health.
Hmm.
Um, and not being online chronically is one of the things that is going to ensure that you're in a good place. So, yeah, I think when the
Yeah.
dust settled and then they reprioritized pins instead of just idea pins, it was such a relief.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. But, to your point, Pinterest wants to inspire people and then have you go like, oh, I want to try that, and then get offline and go try it.
Like building this office.
Right. They want you to go build something. They want you to go cook something. They want you to go
Yeah,
try a different yoga routine that you didn't know about before you found it on Pinterest. Like,
yeah,
that's the thing, and that is what makes it different. But, I think it's interesting because a lot of us who were in the program, because they designed the program to prioritize, like, you had to get a certain number of saves in order to get paid in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
It really helped us all refocus on like, okay, what does it take to get saves? Well, it takes inspiration. You have to inspire people. You have to give people something that they think is unique enough that they want to save it and try it later, or save it and try it again later when they just tried it before and they liked it and they
And
want to do it again. And I think that lasted. I think that stayed with us. I think that, and it
yeah,
wasn't just you and I who, and the Pinterest educators, I think it was the users too. A lot of people really refocused on what we need to keep Pinterest healthy. So I think that was another really good benefit of, or
yeah,
like byproduct from that 1 year when they had this, messy but beautiful paying creators directly creator rewards, program.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think currently, as it stands, in most people's account settings or in everyone's account settings, it doesn't mean you'll get it added into the platform. A lot of platforms actually have things like this. I know YouTube does. But if you go in there, you'll see a little thing in your settings that says branded content. And if you click on it, you can sign up to where Pinterest will kind of connect you with brands based on your profile and your content to get you paid. But again, Pinterest is not paying you, brands are paying you.
Right. So
Same
let's
with
repeat
affiliate
that again.
marketing, right? Brands are paying you, Pinterest is not paying you.
Right. That's the present day after they close creator rewards.
They have a
And that's
branded content program.
right. Really important. Really
And I
important.
haven't heard much about this program. I'm actually going to ask my POC about it and see if there's any more information she can give me. But there's
Mhm.
also something, Jana, called the Inclusion Fund, and they're in their fourth year, which is fantastic. And I
Yes.
think there's something that's really important to note about the Inclusion Fund. It is a program that prioritizes um, minority groups of people and people that are underrepresented on in communities on Pinterest. So they really want to highlight those communities. And I find this to be like, yes, let's do that. Um, it's a superb platform for people or a program for people to get into. And we actually know a few people who've been in it. Isabel Diaz is one of the ladies that was in the inclusion fund. I think she might have been in one of the first rounds.
Hmm.
So the inclusion fund is like when you apply and you get approved, and they do different like seasons. So they want to try to get different types of creators in each round. Um, so it's not always like self-care people. There's sometimes people who are doing like creating handmade products or, fashion or beauty or like whatever it is. But they connect those creators with education, with mentorship, and they give them a cash grant to help them to create the content. So they're
Right.
not paying them to create content. They are paying them to sharpen their skills and produce content. So I find that there is a pretty sizable delineation between a creator fund situation and the inclusion fund grant for being in it.
Yep.
Because
Do you mean
the grant is broken out in like part of the money needs to be used on equipment.
right?
Part of the money can be used for X, Y, and Z.
Yep. Yeah, it was a combination. It's a combination of education, equipment, and we say equipment like, like a camera for shooting your content,
Yeah.
editing software, things like that, right? Yep.
So I'm looking at the page for this, and I'm just going to
Hmm.
read this quickly. It says members of must be part of a company, or if they're a small merchant, there's three of them: small merchant, independent, or creator agency,
Yep.
at least 50% owned and operated by a member of an underrepresented community, or have 70% or more products that support communities from BIPOC, LGBTQIA plus, disability, plus size, and intersection of communities
Yep.
and/or intersection of communities. Must offer goods and services within, and this is their most recent one, fashion, beauty, lifestyle, US or Canada, 18 or older, like run-of-the-mill requirements, but that top line is the most important, and that's really what they're focusing on with the Inclusion Fund, which is where it gets its name.
Right. Yep. And it's similar in some ways to the original version of it, if you will, called the Creator
Mhm.
Fund. And during the era when they were doing the Creator Rewards program, 2021, late 2021 to late 2022, there was a lot of confusion between those two, and people used both kind of interchangeably, Creator Rewards and
Yeah.
Creator Fund, which added to the confusion, of course, and added to the chaos. But the Creator Fund started off similarly to an inclusion fund as well. And I think it actually probably evolved into the inclusion fund in some ways. Obviously, we don't know if it, ended and they started a new thing or if it kind of evolved into it. That's kind of a behind the scenes thing, but it had that
Yeah.
similar goal and similar like mission for people. So in that way, you may still hear rumblings when you are looking online about creators who are still being paid by
Mhm.
Pinterest. But it's a very select group. It's by application only.
Yep.
And it's not something like Creator Rewards where you can just like apply through your phone and you're either accepted or declined. It's like a more of a process and um, and technically, like you said, they're not really paying people like for every pin you create, you get XYZ or
Yeah.
whatever. They're granting people a combination of cash and a stipend for equipment, and they also participate in education about
It's
um,
almost like a small business
creator
grant,
skills.
Jana. That's kind of what it
Exactly.
reminds me of. It's like a small
Exactly.
grant
Right.
to
Right.
really get your business started as a creator and to
Right.
get more people knowing about your business and buying from your business. And one way
Yeah.
that Pinterest can help support is by creating this sort of program where they provide you with the best practices for growing on their platform. They provide you with deep knowledge with experts like myself who come in and teach you on specific topics. Of course, they give you, cash grants to help with the content production and optimization. That's what's on their website. But they also provide creators, those in the inclusion fund, with ad credits so they can actually boost their pins
Oh,
through ads.
right. Right. Yep.
And then they have mentorship sessions with experts from their field. So if you're in the beauty influencing space, then ideally
Oh.
they're bringing in experts that can help you with the marketing or whatever,
Hmm.
whatever it is specifically to that thing they're wanting you to learn about. So it's really more of like a business growth container, is how I see
Right.
it.
That's a great description and it's a great analogy. And then separate from that, starting in the days of the Creator Rewards era, all the way up till now, there is still this possibility of monetizing with brand deals. And what that basically
Mhm.
means is that you have a pre-existing relationship with a brand, not
Yep.
one that you are like waiting to meet somebody through Pinterest to be their brand representative, but rather you already have a pre-existing agreement with them or you're working on one to create content for them. When you create it on Pinterest, there are tools on the Pinterest app that you can use to make sure you're following FCC guidelines and all that kind of thing. But again,
Yeah.
that's not Pinterest paying you directly, and it's also not Pinterest introducing you to brands, although they do that through the Inclusion Fund. That's not what's going on
Yeah.
with the like sort of like mainstream brand partnership kind of way of monetizing Pinterest. And so that adds to the confusion as well and makes it so I always am having people ask me, and I know you are too, is Pinterest paying creators? Um, so let me just clarify this with you, Heather, to your knowledge. I think you mentioned this earlier. Outside of the Pinterest Inclusion Fund, are there any ways that Pinterest is introducing everyday creators to brands behind the scenes that we just don't always know about, do you think?
I think it could just be that menu item in your account that says branded content. But again, that's just like a connection service, kind of like third party share a sale websites that are connecting you with affiliates. They're connecting you. YouTube does it too, where
Mhm.
they can connect you with brands that you can become an affiliate or get brand deals with.
Yeah,
So it's almost like probably they're inserting you into a database where people can search through creators, see their accounts, see what kind of content they're creating, and then reach out to them. That's what I
right.
envision it to
Mhm.
be, but I'm gonna ask my contact about this and get some more clarity on it.
Okay.
Uh,
Because when I look at the branded content hub, it says I'm eligible, with a big exclamation mark. And I know a lot of people see that and they think, oh my God, I'm going to make money on Pinterest. And you have to realize again, if the way that I'm interpreting it when I'm looking at this is that it says, are you ready to get started? And it gives you 3 links to go and learn about how this works.
mhm,
When you read through all of the information in those 3 links, the bottom line here is you're eligible, according to Pinterest, to create content on Pinterest that brands can pay you for,
mhm.
but you have to have a pre-existing relationship with that brand.
Yeah,
So that's what gets confusing. People think they can create something and then they sort of wait around and say, I did it. Where's the person paying me? But that's not how it works. And it's
Right.
very clear if you actually take the time to read the 3 things that they link you to in
Mhm.
the branded content section of your app, it's very clear that this is specifically for people who are already working with brands or are in the process of independently on their own accord pitching brands for content, including content on Pinterest. So I just want to be clear about that because I know people tuning into this video maybe again waiting for us to kind of really clarify that. And to me, unless Heather comes back with more additional information, that's what I'm seeing in the branded content hub on my phone. So that's my limited, but at least my basic understanding of what that's all about. It doesn't mean that if you go ahead and create a pin right now because it says you're eligible, that someone's going to pay you for it. That's not the cause effect relationship.
Okay, well, I need to run. I have a meeting. I hope this live helps to answer this question for many of you. We will see you back here next week. The
Yep.
lives are on the channel. You can go notify yourself of them.
Yep. And if you want to read more about monetizing Pinterest and the 8 ways that creators do make money on Pinterest, we're going to drop at least one link, if not a couple, to some long form content that Heather and I have on that topic.
Yep. Perfect.
Bye.
Awesome. Bye for now. All right, I'm gonna